Hello, y'all. So for today's video, I'm gonna be talking about a DLC ban at a local series that's pretty notable. I think it's one of the bigger locals in the entirety of the US, called Shockwave. It's in Texas, and they're experimenting with a month of DLC bans, just because DLC Pack 2, specifically Steve and Kazuya bans. Just because Steve and Kazuya, I've made videos on this before. I don't think I have to say too much about it, so I give a quick summary. But these characters are extremely strong, right? Extremely strong, and relatively easy to pick up. Steve, at all levels of play, is the best character in the game. Very low skill floor, very high skill ceiling. Extremely good matchup spread that just invalidates a good majority of the roster, I'd say. And is just, for most people, extremely unfun to fight. So, that's all just a recipe for, like, should we ban this character? And then, I've talked about this before on the channel, right? And then Kazuya, while Kazuya isn't quite as good as Steve, I think Kazuya is slowly creeping up to become the second best character in the game. He is, once you get past the execution barrier of doing his electrics and his combos, he is also very easy, because his game plan is very simple. He hits you with electric, or anything that combos in electric, and you die. And he's extremely simple. So once you have that stuff down, he's actually really easy to play and just win with, I'd say, except for certain rare matchups. So most of his matchups, either he wins hard or he loses hard. And then the counterplay to him is very specific. You basically have to play as lame as physically possible and pretty much go for a timeout. Which is, when people try to play a video game, they're trying to fight each other generally. Not use Sonic beans. But they're generally trying to interact, right? So the fact that both these characters forced on interactions in different ways that aren't really what people are trying to play Smash for, and they're extremely strong at these things with not too much of a barrier to getting at least decent at them, makes them extremely annoying characters even at like lower levels. Like, even fighting like an 0-2 or Kazuya, if he can do the combos, if you're fighting 0-2, see if they can make blocks, it's just not gonna be fun. You're fighting like a 2-2 over those characters, you can just lose off the smallest things. So, it's understandable when most people are more casual players, like even tournament players. Most of them aren't trying to be the best. Most of them trying to go to the locals, have some fun at their locals, get better or whatever. But that's it. They're not trying to be the best in the world. Maybe they're trying to get PR or top 8 of their events. And that's the average person. Because for the average person, this is just a hobby, right? So, if you're not enjoying your hobby, you're probably going to stop doing the hobby at some point. For people like me, where it's like, I go to big tournaments all the time, pro player, whatever. If it's annoying to deal with, I'll deal with it, whatever. But, with that said, that's kind of why we have this happening, right? Because Texas, in particular, has a lot of Steve and Kazuya. It also has a lot of Min, which is not a fun character to fight. Has a lot of Aegis. Actually, I don't think it has so much Aegis. But she is an extremely annoying character for most people. I'm not sure how popular Sora or Sephiroth are. Sephiroth's not even on here, funny enough. So it really is just Steve, Kazuya, and maybe Min that this is meant to target. Now, with that said, these are the stats, because the first of these events happened. And you can see from the first week, this is one where all Fighters Pass 2 is banned. So, they are comparing this to Ultimate Shockwave 131, which is the last Shockwave event that had no banned characters. So, viewership on Twitch, I don't think it's a big deal. It like multiplied by 5 times, max viewership quadrupled. So, pretty good, but it's a new thing, right? It's a gimmick. You can't read too much into that. And then the attendance increased from 67 to 91. Granted, they offered all Fighters Pass 2 players free entry to the event as kind of compensation for this. And it's only about 24 entrance increase, which is about 50% more, which is still nice, but it's not like amazing, in my opinion. But at the same time, like, what's interesting is this consistent, right? First week, it's a bit of a gimmick, so people are gonna go. But the real question is, let's say we're on week 5, okay, let's say week 4. I'm not gonna say week 5 because I think all DLC bans, everyone knows, is kind of silly, and will could easily just leave people not going because that's a lot of characters banned. But we'll see. Yeah, so I think with this said, if we see like these consistent numbers for the next 4 weeks, that's an interesting talking point, right? Because at the end of the day, a game is kept alive by its viewers and its players. And if you can grow the viewership and player base, that is really good for the game, right? And if you look at the actual top 8 for these events, so the one with DLC not banned, you had Min 3rd, Steve 5th, Kazuya 7th. So 3/8 of the top 8 was DLC. Fire's Pass 2 in particular. And then I was thinking it was Fire's Pass 1 character, because generally those characters are just weaker. And then Fire's Pass 2, next week Fire's Pass 2 is banned. You have a top 8 that actually looks pretty similar for the most part. You know, the DLC players aren't in there, which happens when your main is banned. You're gonna do worse, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It can easily take like half a year to build up another character to be as good as you were with your previous main. But you have a lot of similarities. You still have Liam in the top 8, Skits, Danby, who else? And then you have some people I haven't seen Denty in forever. Dang, Johnny's a good player. He's done well at National before, I think. But yeah, and then from what I've heard, a lot of people at the event generally just had a good time. Like, just playing the game. It just seemed to be a positive atmosphere. A lot of people on Twitter are complaining, oh my god, they banned my character. Oh my god, I don't want to play the game anymore. Which is understandable, actually. Like, if your character's banned, and that's the character you just vibe the most with in this game, it's totally understandable if you're not enjoying the game as much. You can complain, and even if you stop playing, and that is potentially an issue, right? So you have to... So that's happening. I think Twitter has had a lot more controversy about this than actually an event, because everyone knows this is a test, right? But what I'm interested in seeing is, will other locals potentially do the same now? Because I don't think this is a bad experiment at all. I don't think that we should just say, oh, let's ban everything forever and that's it. But, you know, what if like 10 locals across the US did the same exact thing and saw the same results over the course of like 3 or 4 weeks, where they had consistently higher viewership and higher attendance? And granted, this isn't really a metric you can work with, but people just seem to be enjoying themselves at the event. So that is, that's a good talking point right there. So just be on the lookout. And I'd say keep an open mind to this. While I don't think a ban's ever gonna happen for Ultimate, we never had bans on the characters before. I feel like this is the closest we ever had to a ban in Smash since a very short Mana ban in Brawl, which honestly would have been permanent if we didn't have the TO of Apex, the biggest event in like the world for Brawl, say, hey, Meta Knight's unbanned, so Japan comes over. But like in Smash 4, there was a lot of talks about banning Bayo, Clash of ban the Dabuz, but I think in particular Bayo was basically probably gonna be banned, to be honest. But I think Smash Ultimate got announced kind of as that was happening, and we were seeing Smash 4 really dwindle from Bayo. So we never got to that point. Keep in mind, Ultimate's been around for probably just as long, if not longer, than the Smash 4 was as a competitive game at this point. I consider the death of Smash 4 to be like EVO 2018 Grands with the Bayo Dittos. That really killed pretty much everyone's drive in that game. Like, straight up, you could just see it. Everyone was kind of done with the game at that point. But, yeah. I think it's... Man, I gotta say, COVID really hurt this game, because pretty much all these characters were developed during COVID, right? So they weren't play tested as well. And then, for some reason, Nintendo stopped balancing the game after dropping Sora, instead of giving the offline meta like a year or so to balance and give us one last patch. But, yeah. And it's funny, because I'm pretty sure Sora was developed near the end. Well, he was the last Fire Space 2 character, right? As we were going back to offline. So he was probably the only character of this past that really had a lot of offline testing to make sure they were fine. And then I think Sephiroth may have been developed actually during like a time in Japan when COVID was not really going crazy. Like the in-between, because there was a time in Japan that COVID was going crazy, and then there's a few months where it was kind of fine. So they opened things up, and then it closed back up again. So I think Sephiroth might have been like getting a lot of his development during that time, which is why his design isn't as egregious as other characters in this pass. But yeah, just wanted to note that I could be completely wrong, by the way, so don't attack me in the comments and be like, Dabuz, you're completely wrong, you idiot. But yeah, what do you guys have to think about this? Let me know in the comments below. I'm very interested, because it's like long term, you know, what are the results? And even short term, like, if you feel like this is justified, is this an overreaction? Is it not worth punishing the people just liking these characters for the sake of everyone else complaining about these characters and having their enjoyment of the game significantly lowered by them? Right? And is there even a chance these characters get banned? Like, Nintendo's probably not going to want that to happen for, like, Nintendo-sponsored events. But, like, what if every other tournament series just does that? I don't know. It's so many different ways it could play out. Yeah. Hope you all thought this was interesting. Catch you later.